but we cannot get the Senate to even take those budgets up. I introduced, you know, the Senate has not passed a budget in nearly 3 years. I introduced a piece of legislation about a month and a half ago called the Pass a Budget Now Act. How many of you have heard of that? The Pass a Budget Now Act says this: by April 15th of every year, both chambers of the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, by law are required to pass a budget. My bill says that whichever chamber does not pass a budget, starting on April 16th, the members of that chamber of Congress do not get paid. And not only do they not get paid, but their salary doesn't go into escrow so that they can get their hands on it later once they decide that they need to do their job. It's forfeited, and it goes back into the general treasury, and it goes toward paying down the national debt. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to lie to you and make you think that's going to make a big difference in our national debt. You could take the salaries from all of the senators and all of the U.S. representatives, and that's not going to make a drop in the bucket to what our national debt is. But I guarantee you that it will create a debt problem for those members that are not doing their jobs. And when they start seeing their own personal wallets beginning to suffer, they might get a little bit more interested in sitting down around the table and coming to some common sense solutions to get America back on the right track.
I got a question.
Yeah, Bobby.
What about the road bill? Did they pass a road bill?
We did pass a transportation bill.
All right, how does it trickle down to, say, township?
Oh, it does. And we eliminated, we got, our initial bill that we put before the Senate was a 5-year bill that eliminated many federal bureaucracy and processes in terms of getting highway projects approved down at the state level. And it gave the states a lot more flexibility in terms of spending that money that was being provided for our nation's infrastructure, highway infrastructure.
I was talking to Mike, he's with the township trustee, and they cut him 10% on the roads. Mm-hmm. And it was even enough to even with the, I had the 10%, it would not even cover.
Yeah.
What he needs.
I don't know when his 10% cut came, Poppy, and it's going to be up to the states. That's another one that you're going to have to go to the state to figure out how the state's going to trickle down their part of the money. But I can tell you that we got a 2-year bill, not a 5-year bill, and we got about 65% of the reforms and the elimination of bureaucratic red tape to make it easier to get highway projects funded and those kinds of things. So it's a step in the right direction. It's not all that we wanted, but it is a step in the right direction. Yeah, Charles?
Well, answering his question, I've been going around township meetings in my district, and except for a couple, 3 or 4 townships, they're cutting money in Washington County to the townships, they're cutting state money. And that's one thing I want to get up there. We just can't. They got more roads in the counties and states. We just can't leave them dry because they're out of money.
Well, here's what we know for sure. Here's what we know for sure. It's a double-sided sword, and it's a double-sided problem. We can't say on one hand that we got a $16 trillion debt and it's climbing and we've got to cut spending, and then stand there and say, cut everybody else's spending, but don't cut mine. Everybody's got to take a haircut in this deal. Everybody is going to have to participate in this spending, getting our spending under control and forcing Washington to live within its means. But it needs to be appropriately doled out so that rural areas like the Ohio River here and Appalachia, Ohio, don't get left out in the process. And I can assure you that's an area where I'm going to be fighting for as well.
Well, one example of Belpre on 7 and 50, they've done all these extensions. I don't know if you drove past there. They were completely empty. I mean, there's never that much traffic in Belpre. They needed a couple $100 long exit ramp coming off on Barson and Ron Street there. So to me, that's money that was spent that didn't need to be. But there's supposed to be, one tax was passed about 15 years ago, it's supposed to be 83%, supposed to go to the townships. And what I'm hearing, less than 20% goes now. So they're taking that money and they're putting it elsewhere when it was originally passed to go to the townships. So if they do pass an addition, they need to keep going where it's supposed to be going in the first place. Not hijack that money and then take it elsewhere and spend it on something that not necessarily is something we need today.
That's where county commissioners and state reps and state senators need to be taking that information back up to the state legislature and the governor and making sure, you know, so often rural areas here in Appalachia, Ohio are at the backs of everybody's minds in Columbus and Washington. And my team and I are working hard to try and change that perspective. We're making progress. It's not as fast as we want it to go because we've got a spending problem. We've got a bad spending problem in Washington. If we want a future for our children and our grandchildren, we got to change it. I mean, look at what happened just last Thursday. Last Thursday, when the Supreme Court ruled that Obamacare is now the law of the land. Yeah. Well, that law is going to bankrupt America. It's going to ruin the highest quality health care system in the world. The president promised us that it was going to create jobs. It's not going to create jobs. 40% of America's small businesses are saying that law is the reason why they can't grow and hire and expand their businesses. He promised us that it was going to cut costs. We now know that the Supreme Court has ruled exactly what he said it wasn't, a tax on the American people, that it is a tax, and it's one of the largest taxes that has been perpetuated on the American people in our history. And as far as lowering health care costs, we now know, according to the CBO, that it's going to cost upwards of $2 trillion. He also promised us we could keep our own doctors, and we now know that that's not true either, because 1 in 3 health care providers are limiting taking on additional Medicare patients because they're not getting reimbursed at a rate where they can pay their bills. And the law cut $500 billion out of Medicare. You're going to hear a lot of people say a lot about Medicare. But I'm telling you right now, you'll hear it from my mouth, and I'll repeat it many times over the next few months. I support a plan to make sure that today's seniors, those 55 years of age and older, see no change to their fully funded Medicare benefits. We can't roll back the clock. They can't reinvest their money in something else and pay for their health care today. The federal government made a commitment to today's seniors, and we need to make sure that Washington stands up to that commitment. And we need to strengthen and preserve that safety net program for future generations so that we've got a safety net there for our children and our grandchildren. It's those who cut it by $500 billion, $500 billion in Obamacare, and those who want to do nothing to it, those are the ones that are making sure that it goes belly up. Because Medicare, according to the head of the trustees, has indicated that it's going to go bankrupt. It's going to be done by 2024 if we don't do something. That's 12 short years from now. That time will fly by. So we've got a lot of hard work to do. This gentleman back there had a question.